The two things that I've learned, one is to focus on one spiritual principle a week. So my favorite spiritual principle is amusement, right?
Oh,
But yeah, you wouldn't think of that as a
yeah.
spiritual
I
principle,
was
but
going
it
to say most
is.
people wouldn't classify that as a spiritual principle.
I think it is. A
Yeah.
sense of lightness and amusement, I think, is absolutely a spiritual principle. And if I hold that in my mind, in the forefront of my mind, and it's my intention for every day is to practice amusement, to look for amusement, to hold my body and the posture of amusement, to try to breathe the way you breathe when you're amused, then all of a sudden it gives me something to focus on that day that eases the irritation and the impatience.
Wow. You've blown my mind, Kay. I'm like,
Mind blown.
yeah. I'm sitting here trying to think of how I can apply that daily because who doesn't love to be amused? Who doesn't
Right?
love to laugh and that feeling that your body has when you're amused? So, oh,
Look, Nate, this is what I believe. We all live in these prisons that we have created out of fear. It's all fear. Hurt
100%.
feelings, fear.
Yep.
Anger, fear. Like fear is underneath all of it. You didn't meet my expectations. That's because of fear. It's all run by fear. But we created it. We created it. And that same ability we have to create fear, we can create amusement. We can create gratitude. We
Yes.
can create whatever we want. We have that amount of creative power.
Can I ask you about your clairvoyant energies?
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, I hear a lot that like people who consider themselves to be empaths and say that they, feel the feelings of other people and take on other people's energy and take on other people's sadness and happiness and the energy that they're putting off. How do you strengthen that clairvoyant muscle?
Oh, I gotta tell you, this is like the best podcast interview I've ever had. I
I
love
love
this
that.
interview. I think that, look, you can put all kinds of labels on being able to know things without knowing how you know them.
Yeah.
Empath, yes, I identify with that. Clairvoyant, yes, I identify with that. Psychic, yes, I actually identify with that. And before you think I sound like a flake, I want you to know that I have had four companies that have made millions of dollars. So I'm not like with
Oh,
the
I don't.
glass bowl somewhere,
Right.
with the
No.
neon sign. That's not me. But here's what I've found. Using psychic tools, using clairvoyant or empath or intuitive skills, tools have helped me get unblocked from the old stories that used to run me. And all those stories were fear. And so I'm just going to teach you two quick
Please.
things. One is to imagine that you have like a tail that goes all the way from your sits bones all the way down to the center of the earth. Okay, so it's a tube, it's a tail, it's a giant sized straw or a hollow tree trunk or something, right? So just imagine that in the center of the earth, it clicks in like a seatbelt clicks in, and anything that no longer serves you, just in your mind's eye, set your intention that anything that doesn't serve you anymore is going to go down that tube. Okay. And what's cool about that is all that negative energy, the center of the earth, recycles it and neutralizes it. So we don't have to feel like we're polluting. And then the second tool is, as you've got that grounding cord going, is to imagine that you have a giant golden sun over your head and you can fill it in with, let's just fill it in with amusement for kicks.
Yeah.
And imagine that you poke a hole in the bottom of it and it comes in through the top of your head and you can just feel that kind of giggly, bubbly, kind of yellow color coming down like behind your eyes, past your mouth, down your throat. through your shoulders and your chest and your belly and your hips and down your legs. And as it plunges down, it's squeegeeing out all the gunk that isn't amusement, right? And that goes down your grounding cord. So it's a great way of just kind of shifting your energy.
The grounding cord, is that common terminology or?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that, grounding cord. So you talk about working with different companies and corporations, and in what capacity have you helped these companies to better themselves, or is it from a business standpoint or a culture standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question. I My first company was called the Energy Infuser, and we used consumer insights to help Fortune 200 companies create their next $100 million platforms, be it brands or new product ideas or business models. And it was called the Energy Infuser because I infused the energy of the human beings that they were trying to serve into their corporations.
Mm.
And so I did a lot of qualitative market research. So I have probably interviewed 10,000 people all over the world in my career doing
Wow.
that. And it made me really curious about what makes people tick, because I have come to the conclusion that everything we do makes sense to us in some way. And if you do something that is incomprehensible to me, it's on me to get curious about how you see the world, because what you've done makes sense to you. It's obvious to you. And then I get really, really curious. And that's what I taught these clients. I called it having a fluid point of view rather than a fixed point of view.
Mm.
I encouraged them, I coaxed them to come and pretend they were standing in my high heels for a couple minutes and could see the world through my eyes rather than looking at me as somebody that was buying 6 jars of mayonnaise a year or whatever
Right, a statistic.
Right, exactly.
So I want to get into Juicy AF and talk about where the idea came from and the concept.
Oh, yeah. So Juicy came from that first story that I told you, that I really want to embody how juicy and sparkly and full of magical possibilities being alcohol free can be. Free from alcohol, free to create a magnificent life.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And just the AF, kind of a cheeky, fun, amused
Yeah.
point of view in the
Oh,
world.
yes, I love it.
And so it is a program for women who are either sober curious or wanting to get alcohol free, or who already are alcohol free. And there are a combination of 3 skills that I teach. One is intuitive skills, to take care of that live wire antenna that we all are, learning how to work with it rather than having to numb it out.
Right.
I also teach people how to create connection by designing conversations, one conversation at a time. And then also this idea of taking spiritual actions. That is another part of the program that I've put together. And all of this, Nate, is a result of decades of experience and learning for me, not only as an alcohol-free woman, but also as a successful entrepreneur and an executive coach and as a clairvoyant. And I've never seen anything put together quite like this. So I'm so excited about encouraging people to envision their ideal future selves and then show them the roadmap to get between where they are now and that ideal future self that they want to be.
Yeah, I think sometimes that can be the overwhelming piece of taking the leap, is the question mark in between. Here's where I am. There is where I want to be. And I think, the same as we think about, oh, how am I not going to drink for the rest of my life? If we take it one step, one day, one road, on our roadmap at a time, it becomes less overwhelming.
I think
Um,
that's right. What I've found is that getting through that circle of fear of, oh my God, what is my life going to be like without drinking?
yeah,
I needed two things. Number one, I needed a roadmap to help me see what this new world could actually be. And number two, I needed companions on my trip. I needed connection. I needed other women like me who were going through this experience for the first time. And I sure needed those women that had more years of experience than I did, who were really pointing out the way.
yeah,
For people that are just becoming alcohol free, I help them on a very practical level set themselves up for success with kind of three elements: their environment, meaning physical and social, number two, their habits, and number three, making a 100% commitment to being alcohol free for the duration of whatever our experiment together is going to be. So, my first program is a 21-day alcohol free experiment kind of program.
got it.
So that program is very, very practical and geared for people that are going alcohol free for the first time. I then have a longer program that is has 10 modules, learning modules in it, where I teach people how to get clear about their ideal future self, how to identify their old stories and their old patterns and their old belief, even go and teaching them how to do a past life reading on
Oh, I love
themselves,
those.
really old stories.
Yeah,
And then we create a prescription for the antidote to those old stories.
mm,
So, from a clairvoyance standpoint, we race patterns and work with a healing master. From a more practical standpoint, we learn how to design new conversations based on spiritual principles. So it is a eat this, not that, but on a
yeah,
spiritual level, right? So if you think you're not good enough, how about instead focusing on being really honest and really vulnerable and really brave?
I love
Okay,
that. Yeah.
right? So there's an antidote because nature abhors a vacuum. You can't tell me to stop thinking that I'm not good enough. I don't know what else to think about,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Kay, where can people find you online or get more information on the courses?
So, for your listeners, I have a special offer for this 21-day program. You can find me at juicyaf.life/21. And if you go to that place
Yeah.
and sign up, I'm also offering it to your listeners for 50% off.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Do we have time for me to tell you one
Yeah,
story?
for sure.
So, March 12th of 2020, remember? Like,
That's the beginning of it, right?
yeah. And I, on March 11th, I had gone to a meeting and felt really uncomfortable. Didn't want to hold anybody's
Yeah.
hand, didn't sat way in the corner. So I decided to start a meeting, a 12-step meeting on Zoom, because I use Zoom for business all
Yeah.
the time for my girlfriends and my sponsees and all of that. And today, last night on that meeting, Nate, we had 80 people, 7 days a week. 7 days a week. It's been going for 2 years and eight
Oh
months.
my God. I have
People from
chills.
all over the world. And literally, Nate, I have seen, and it's the guys that get me. I've seen men walk in, green,
Yeah.
shaking, crying. Their wives are leaving them. They got fired. They've been kicked out of their house. And 30 days later, that little pilot light behind their eyes has flickered back on.
Yeah.
And there is just something so humbling and overwhelming. It's like being a witness to somebody being born.
Oh, it's so true.
And it's such a great feeling. And I'm such an addict. I'm like, I want more of that. Give me more, give me more. And that really, because that community is so warm and so welcoming and so smart and honest and kind. Like, I know that I'm good at creating these envelopes or packages or energetic spaces for people to come into that are transformative when they pick up the things that are offered there.
Mm.
And that's the meaning of what I'm doing with the rest of my life. So I am here and I am fully in.
I wanted to ask you if there are a few tangible things that our listeners can take from our interview today, or some things perhaps that folks in early recovery can take away from today's interview and utilize in their daily life.
The first thing I'll say, if you're newly sober, is to make a 100% commitment. And I'm not talking about the rest of your life. I'm just talking about the next 30 days, the next 7 days, whatever you feel like you can do. And here's why. It's actually easier. It's easier to make a 100% commitment than it is to have a 99% commitment, because with 99%, you're always wondering, is this the exception? Is it not the exception? La la. And our deciders get tired. And if we're constantly deciding if this is the exception or not, our deciders are going to get so tired, and a tired decider makes bad decisions.
Very true. You always find that one little cracked door, don't we?
So that's the first really, really practical thing that I would say. The second thing that I would invite you to think about is, who is your ideal future self? What principles does that person operate from? Daydream, like, go play dress up with me in your imagination. Daydream. If you are your ideal self and you wake up in the morning, what do you see? What's out your window? Is it the Eiffel Tower? Is it a handsome dude? Is it a horse? You know, like, a fireplace? Like, what do you see when you open your eyes? And what is your haircut like? And what conversations do you want to be in all day that day? So to start with very clearly articulating and getting a mental image, not only of what that person looks like, but the feeling that you have when you're that person. Because once you get clear about your future and where you're going, it's going to be easier for you to let go of your past.
So powerful, yet attainable. Very good starting blocks. I think that those are very important. You nailed it.
Good.
Kay, thank you so much for your time today.
You're a very special guy. You've got great energy. And seriously, I was a professional interviewer. You're very good.
Well, thank you. Let's be in touch. Again, I will link Kay's information and the 50% offer that we discussed in today's show notes. Kay, enjoy your day. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Sounds great, Nate. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening today, friends. Hopefully you heard something that resonates with you. And if we help just one person, our job is done. Make sure you check today's show notes for all the information discussed in the episode and how to connect with our guest. And as always, check us out at thesobrietydiaries.com, youtube.com/Nate Kelly, and on Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the show, friends. It truly helps other people to find the show, and in turn, we can help more people. Until next Wednesday, try your best not to drink and be good to yourselves. Bye, everyone.